Northwoods.com. I'm the Trigger Rich Bontrager. Part of the reason I have that nickname is the man sitting next to me is Dick Radatz Jr. He's the president, the chairman, former owner of the Rochester Honkers of the Northwoods Summer Collegiate League, a league that began back in 1994. It's now in its 23rd season. And in this segment, we're going to talk about what has happened the last 13 years. Because with vision, with dreams, with ideas, you never know if they're really ever going to happen. And being the Midwestern guy that I am, you and I sat around a lot in the early days talking about someday I want to get to Michigan. Someday I want to get to Michigan. But it was interesting to me is before you got to Michigan, you got to Canada.
Yeah.
How did we get to Canada?
Yeah, that's opportunity is the way I look at it. The Northern League had a team in Thunder Bay, sort of one of my favorite nicknames of all time, the Thunder Bay Whiskey Jacks.
That's right.
And the Whiskey Jack is a bird, for those who don't know. But yeah, they left Thunder Bay and they left Duluth ultimately too. So Duluth, Minnesota. So these teams are approximately 180 miles apart on the North Shore of Lake Superior in both old-time beautiful venues. So it was opportunity for us to put teams in great markets. You know, they're bigger sort of cities, and those were, and they're still with us. And great cities. I love that. Once a year, I hit Canada Day on July 1st. It's kind of a ritual, and come back to the States and catch the fireworks on the 4th.
But that did present logistics for us. I remember the conversation with after we kind of birthed the team, we realized we got border, we got passports, we got other issues that all of a sudden summer collegiate baseball doesn't go this direction. Again, this was foreign territory somewhat, and say, how do we manage 18, 19, 20-year-olds going out of the country, and we're responsible for them?
No question. That's a great point, because every player that plays in the league now has to have a passport. All our umpires, that we really didn't, hit us smack dab in the face. There's work visas. There's all these different things that go with this, and then. Another aspect, very truthfully, is the drinking age in Canada is 19 years old. It's not like the U.S., so there's an added degree of responsibility that goes with players playing up there. So yeah, it's we're in another country.
Yeah, and again, that happens before getting to Michigan. Now you got Kalamazoo, and you got
Battle Creek, Michigan.
Battle Creek. And you and I talked a lot about Kalamazoo growing up. We both had an affinity for that area.
Sure.
What was it like to finally get to the Midwest and add that arm?
Well, I grew up in Michigan mostly. My dad and mom had been from the Detroit area. My dad pitched for the Tigers in '69 and retired there. So I knew Michigan well. And it sounds funny now, but when we started the Northwoods League, there were no professional teams in Michigan.
Yes. And
now you have the Grand Rapids team, the West Michigan Whitecaps, you have the Lansing Lugnuts, you have a team in Midland, Michigan. You've had a team in Kalamazoo, Michigan in the Frontier League. You have a team in the Frontier League in Traverse City, Michigan right now. And so there's been a number of incarnations in the last 23 years in these cities that I knew well in Michigan. I always thought maybe our next move would be over there. And then finally, Battle Creek was in the Midwest League in 1994, I believe. The Madison, Wisconsin of the Midwest League moved to Battle Creek, Michigan. Now, in hindsight, you can't even fathom that happening, but they did it. And then 10 years later, the Midland, Michigan, the Dow Foundation needed a team to put in the new facility they had built there. And they spent a lot of money and brought that team up there, and now we have another vacant facility in Battle Creek, Michigan. We promptly moved right in with a Northwoods League team. Now, this put us out on an island in the form of Battle Creek for a while, so they were out there, and we always desired to have another team with them. And so then the Frontier League team in Kalamazoo folded, and we went into Kalamazoo. This will be the third season in Kalamazoo, and it's just been a success story, a true success story.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the other place we talked about over the years was the South Bend, Michiana area. Mm-hmm. You've never been able to get in there because South Bend seems to always have some incarnation of a minor league team.
Yeah.
Is that still on the dream board at this point, or is that off the board kind of?
No, possibly. There's some city. Elkhart, Indiana, is still
that's my hometown.
Still on the radar. It could come into play. As you mentioned, Fort Wayne and South Bend have Midwest League teams, so they're flourishing down there. But The interesting thing now is the first time this year we've gone into Illinois. We're in Rockford, Illinois,
Oh.
which became a nice connector around the Chicago for Battle Creek and Kalamazoo. So we're starting to connect the dots around Lake Michigan into the south of Chicago.
Let's talk about the decade team, because that was a very exciting moment, and we alluded to it during our part one segment a little bit. But going through, they were players that made the decade team that are now in the pros. And I can remember when we sat around the first pro that got in. What was that like for you to be the visionary, the dreamer, and say, that's one of our boys? And then to see other players go on, Juan Pierre with the Rockies, things like that. These names now mean something to Major League Baseball. What do they mean to you?
Truthfully, it may sound funny, but those were way down on the totem pole. You know, because I figured that if we did this successfully, that would be a natural offshoot of it.
Okay.
So I just saw that as part of our evolution. My worry was always the business end of it, and could that survive, and are we doing a good job with our concessions, ticketing, those sort of things. I just figured the player thing would take care of itself, and I think one of the bigger surprises was the umpiring.
I was going to ask you about that. We did not expect what happened with the umpires. Talk about that.
Yeah, the umpire situation, we've become, you know, the proving ground, if you will, for umpires, and we're putting 49 of our last 50 umpires have gone into professional baseball.
That's amazing.
So we never saw that coming when we first started this thing. So that was a surprise to me. The player thing, I thought would be a natural, you know, what's the word? Just a peripheral aspect of our success.
Progression of what
happened. Absolutely. And now with names like Chris Sale, Max Scherzer, Jordan Zimmerman, Andre Ethier, you know, it's a who's who of baseball.
It is.
You know, we had 6 Major League All-Stars on the teams last year, so we've now passed the 150 threshold. We put 150 major leaguers into those ranks, so it's only getting bigger and bigger at an exponential level. Actually, 75 of those 150 have come in the last 5 years.
That's amazing. So it's just exploded now.
It's exploded now. It's exponential growth.
Now, with that, you, in the inception, in the early years, were not sanctioned NCAA. Somewhere along the line, you switched. Now, I know there was pressure early on of, I can remember being at a trade show, and there was a lot of conversation being pressed in on us and saying, join us. You're not really one of us. What changed? Why make the jump?
Yeah, we didn't jump, actually. Well, we tried to. Let's qualify. The NCAA was very involved in summer collegiate baseball at that time. And actually what happened was Major League Baseball would give the NCAA money, which they would dole out as subsidies to these different not-for-profit baseball leagues.
Right.
Well, we were for-profit, so we were a different animal, and they didn't know what to do with us.
Yeah.
So we never really wanted or sought their money, especially if there were any conditions applied to it, you know. But they wanted us in, and so we considered it. And then after a couple of years, they put us on probationary sanctioning, and we thought, well, what have we done wrong to be put on probation?
Exactly.
So it was very strange. And then a couple of years into it, the NCAA decided to get out of summer collegiate baseball. So there was no more sanctioned leagues.
Okay.
And there aren't any today. So the Major League Baseball still subsidizes a lot of these other collegiate leagues, but they don't do it through the NCAA anymore. So there's no NCAA sanctioned leagues anymore, and I think probably we had a hand in that. An NCAA representative told me back in those days that they did not want to see summer collegiate baseball get big. And I told him that that's exactly what we want to see, you know. But I think they were worried as they saw the AAU basketball problems and that type of thing, and I think they really feared it with baseball, but I don't think it's quite the